Okay.
Mr. Stern, are you able to see the agenda?
Yeah, Mr. Cleaver, just give me a minute. My speaker was not working correctly. Just 1 second. And welcome to the reorganization meeting of the Lehighton Area School Board. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic
and to the republic
for which it
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote, Ms. Virginio.
Ms. Joy Beers,
Present.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Here.
Mr. David Bradley,
here,
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Here.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Here.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Here.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Here.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Here.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Here. We'll move on to the courtesy of floor. I believe there is one courtesy of the floor. Ms. Bose?
Yeah, I want to talk about the homestead farmstead mailing agreement. Is the entire county switching?
I believe the county does use Berkheimer from what I understand for the mailings.
Okay, so it was done by the county prior to?
This is just for them to mail, Berkheimer to do the mailings. Yes, this is for them to do the mailings for us.
Okay, so who did it in the past?
They have done it in the past. However, this is an agreement, so we wanted to get this board approved before we did anything.
Okay, so they have always done the mail?
Berkheimer has done it in the past, yes.
All right, because we didn't have a motion when we switched to them printing our property taxes. So that's why I'm wondering, I looked over the agreement just a few minutes ago, wondering why it was actually on the agenda if it's always been done that way. I thought the county mailed them.
This is different for them, and like I said, because this is an agreement from Berkheimer, that's why you see it on the agenda.
Okay.
Board approval.
All right, what about when we switched to Berkheimer to print our property taxes? Was that an agreement from Berkheimer?
You know, I'd have to double check, Ms. Bose. I'm actually not 100% sure.
Okay. And that's just what I wanted to ask. I mean, what did it cost us before, and is this more or less or the same? Do you have that information?
This is the same from what I was told. Yes,
Okay, so it's the same cost to the district.
yes. Yep, and again, because this is an agreement, that's why, and this is the first that it was reviewed by me. Usually this was just handled through the business department, but with our situation, not having a current business manager yet here on site full time, because of the word agreement on that, I wanted to have it approved by the board.
Okay, Thank you. I just wanted to know.
I also put in a public's right to speak when you get a chance.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Bradley.
Well, is there anyone else? Is there anyone else that wants to go or not?
Do not see anyone, no.
No one else in the audience has their hand raised?
I do not. The only one that has it at this point is you, Mr. Bradley.
Okay. In reference to the upcoming election of officers, I'd like to recognize that the disqualifying actions of Larry, Steve, and Wayne should be effectively reviewed. In the years reviewed by the Auditor General, it was and firmly documented in the report that these three were part of the cabal that failed to comply with the Pennsylvania School Code. And they allowed, without oversight, mind you, or their obligation to be the checks and balances in the system, they allowed their subordinate staff to sign a contract costing this district nearly $3 million and a stipend to the subordinate staff member paid by the community that did not benefit this community. Not only should they be disqualified to hold an officer position on this board, they should apologize for their past actions and tender their resignations. If you add their misdeeds documented in that Auditor General report and witnessed by this entire community, we should recognize that you'd add to that the fact that we had students that are arrested for lack of supervision, and without a board to provide oversight, this district has gone off the financial cliff. It's in debt, and I don't think the same people can steer this train straight because they have proven that they lack the moral standard of honoring their own oath. And therefore, I feel that Larry, Steve, and Wayne should be disqualified from holding a office position of either president, vice president, treasurer, etc. And when it comes down to discussing Nathan's past actions as treasurer and Rita's, we'll get to them if they so choose to collect an office as well. Thank you. And the public should have a right to speak. Does anyone else on the board like to challenge or reiterate what they read in this Auditor General's report that was so scathing of these individuals that was being reviewed?
Okay, we'll move on to item 5, election of temporary president. Vice president, by prior practice, presides over open nominations for temporary president. Mrs. Spinelli, please.
Yes, at this time, I'd like to open nominations for temporary president.
This is Wayne. I'd like to nominate Nathan Fowler.
Do I have a second?
Second by Steve.
Any other nominations?
I nominate Wayne to be temporary president.
And Wayne declines.
I nominate Steve Holland to be temporary president.
No, thank you.
I find this comical. Did you guys meet before this meeting to decide what you were going to do?
I haven't met with anyone, Mr. Bradley. If I have no seconds for any of these nominations, I'm going to close nominations.
I'll make a motion to close nominations. Larry?
This is Nathan. I'll second.
Okay, I need a motion and a second to elect Nathan Fuller as temporary president.
So moved, Wayne.
Second by Steve.
Hold on, we need to go back to voting on closing the nominations prior to.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's okay, thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
No, I don't think he's fit to hold any official position in this board.
This is to close nominations, Mr. Bradley.
I understand that, Rita, but I don't think you're listening. These people are evil. They don't belong in office, and they don't belong to hold any position, and they don't even belong to be nominated to hold a position. And the reason for closing the nomination is so you guys can rubber stamp this through. Have a nice day.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
No.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
7-2 motion passes.
Thank you. Ms. Valley?
Okay, I need a motion and a second to elect Nathan Fuller as temporary president. I had a motion by Mr. Wentz and a second by Mr. Fuller, correct?
Yes.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Richard Belts,
Hold on, I'd like to make a comment about that motion on the floor. Are you going to let the public or anybody speak on this comment and violate the Sunshine Act? Or are we going to?
No, we're not going to violate the
You're going to
Sunshine Act.
violate the Sunshine Act. You made a motion, hold on. You made a motion. and a
Mr.
second.
Mr. Bradley,
It's a new
Mr.
motion on the
Bradley,
table.
Mr. Bradley, the
Yes, sir.
motion is on the agenda. If the public wanted to speak prior to the meeting, they would need to submit it prior to the meeting. Thank you. If you may
I'm
speak.
sorry, hold on. Mr. Filer, it is understood commonly that a motion listed on the agenda is not complete until the names are assembled into that motion, and therefore they become a new motion, and the public did not have a right to speak on this motion because it was not identified in the minutes or the agenda who was going to be this person. And now that it's Nathan that's been identified, the people should have a right to speak. I know I get a right to speak. I think they should as well. So before you take your vote, you should at least let the board speak. And by the Sunshine Act, I think you're in violation if you don't let the public speak because there was a blank motion on this table. Do you want to get a ruling from Mr. Filer, please, so we don't have more problems, Larry?
The motion on the floor was on, Mr. Riley, the public had an opportunity to comment on who they wanted for temporary president. You were you and Ms. Bose were the only one who submitted anything in advance for questioning, and nobody raised their hands after the courtesy of the floor had closed.
Sorry, sir, that's not how it works. You have a new motion on the floor that the public did not, hold on, a new matter that the public did not have an opportunity to speak on. It's part of the Sunshine Act. You're going to take an official action. You now are going to fill in this blank that's on your agenda. If you had it your way, you could make the entire agenda blank and then fill in all the pieces and parts during the meeting and block everyone from speaking the way you're trying to show this to be. However, in the Sunshine Act, it's very clear. This board is taking an official action. It's going to try to elect this evil person, Nathan Fuller, to a temporary official position, and the public should have a right to speak. I know I have a right to speak.
The public had a right to speak.
Then let them raise their hand and they get to speak. That's how it works. I'll go first. Mr. Fuller, in contradiction to the Office of Auditor General and past adjudicated matters of legal authority for the release of financial records, but which is basically the Office of Open Records, Nathan has taken action against the community in regards to the release of legally permitted public financial records. I don't think he's fit for office. I don't even think he's fit to have a board seat. Nathan also has stated that some of the Pennsylvania school codes are obsolete, yet has failed to identify which ones he feels are obsolete in a public meeting. Nathan, as treasurer, allows his signature, not unlike a rubber stamp, to be applied to the checks that he doesn't see. Does this person, as our treasurer, ever acquire a corporate surety bond? I know he's responsible to do it. I couldn't find it in the minutes where this board accepted that surety bond, right? And Nathan has played loose with the Pennsylvania school code and the responsibilities that he swore as an oath to this people. It appears he thinks he's above the law and should not hold an office. As treasurer, he allows a subordinate administration to create treasurer's reports or not create the treasurer's report for review by our board, which negates the benefits of a second set of eyes on this district funds. This board has a responsibility to be the checks and balances in this government. These politicians have a mandated responsibility. He is not taking that responsibility seriously. He should not be an officer at any moment, even temporary. To neglect the laws of the Commonwealth is to spit in the face of the public that he was elected to serve. Not only should he be not provided this ability to shirk these responsibilities. He shouldn't even have that authority to shirk them. He should resign, and he should allow someone that respects the oath of office to serve the people. I think this is a travesty to this community that suffers from millions of dollars in debt, millions of dollars of wasted, corrupt funds and waste within the community because they fail to do their job. Thank you.
Roll call, vote, Mrs. Trevino.
No, sir. Do not violate the Sunshine Act. Someone has their hand raised.
I am
Please let me
taking
speak.
not your word. I am taking.
I know you're not taking my word, but I'm telling you,
sir.
I am
Roll
making
call
a
vote,
formal
Mrs.
protest. I'm making a formal protest that you have a motion on the agenda that has a blank space in it that you filled, and now you're going to let people not speak on that motion of the minutes. I'm making a formal protest. How are you going to rule Mr. Filer, and how are you going to rule Mr. Stern? Thank you.
Mr. Bradley, the public had a reasonable opportunity to speak. The item on the agenda was for the election of a temporary president. They could have commented on anybody that they wanted to assume the role as temporary president, and they did not.
I think we should get a second opinion. This guy is wrong.
I think he's wrong also.
And I think you should let the people speak just to be covered. However, I get it. You guys are going to railroad these people the way you've been doing it for the last 10 years. And that Auditor General's report shows that the cabal of Lehighton Area School Board, Schwab, Filer, Schwab, whoever you want to call it, and the, I'll call it the merry-go-round of superintendents that have gone through this district, that have run this district with their rubber stamping board, has caused these issues. And until they are corrected, and it's a simple correction, get the data, checks and balances by an elected board, meeting the responsibility of our oath, and let the people speak. It's such a simple concept, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. I am tired of the way you act, sir. I'm tired of it, and I'm not going to let it go
Do we have
anymore.
anyone who would, Mr. Bradley, could you please quiet yourself? Mr. Cleaver, is there anyone who'd like to speak, please?
Hello?
Mr. Kemmer? Mr. Kemmer?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So real quick, I could appreciate what Mr. Filer is saying. I could appreciate what Mr. Bradley is saying. The happy medium, or the one thing that I would say initially, is for the general public to automatically assume before this meeting starts for public comment to go through the laundry list of every single office and every single person. The 2 minutes would definitely not allow enough time for those circumstances. Therefore, I myself didn't do a courtesy of floor because it would be totally a waste of time without knowing who was going to be voted for what particular office. Therefore, my thought is, if each office isn't denoted before the meeting, the courtesy should be when the time comes for us to have a say in that particular nominee. And that's just my thought. I don't necessarily agree with either person. It's like the thing that is the most common sense. Because the courtesy of floor would not have warranted enough time to talk about every single office and every single person. End of comment.
Ms. Bose?
Okay, if we look at this on the face value, given the law, when a name was inserted, the motion was changed. Therefore, it became a new motion because it was amended. So consequently, that would mean that the public has a right to comment. And that's all I wanted to say.
And
Ms.
your idea, Barb, is exactly how the Office of Open Records sees it, how it's been documented that way, and you can look at it
The
on the
Office
website.
of Open Records has nothing to do with the Sunshine Act.
You're wrong again, sir. But thank you. Appreciate your opinion. We should get a second one.
Ms. Spinelli?
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Can we have a roll? Are there any other people who wish to speak, Mr. Cleaver?
There is none at this time.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Can we do a roll call, please? This is a motion to elect Nathan Fuller temporary president.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Absolutely not. We got to vet the evil from this community.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
No.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes,
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
No.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
6-3, motion passes.
Okay, so I would like to seek a motion to open nominations for the president.
This Wayne, nominate Larry Stern.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it. Steve.
I'll nominate Joy Beers.
I'll second that, Rusty. Okay, second by Rusty. Any others?
I nominate Rita Spinelli. Can I get a second on that motion?
Rita Spinelli declines.
That's fine, but if we get a second on that motion, you can be placed on the agenda to be voted on as president.
No, if she doesn't want
Thank
the
you.
position, she
She
doesn't have to take.
but we have the right to nominate her, and she can decline if she's so elected, sir. Can I get a second
She
on the
just
motion
declined.
to nominate Rita Spinelli, please?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second there. Are there any other nominations? If not, I'd like to seek a motion to close nominations.
So moved, Wayne.
Second, Rita.
Larry, could you just clarify for me now? Do we do 3 separate motions for each person who was nominated? One for each person?
Shouldn't we take a vote to close the nominations?
Okay, thank you. You're right. Okay, could we take a roll call vote, please? This is to close nominations.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes, close the nominations.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
9-0, motion carries.
All right, thank you. Larry, could you just fill me in on proper procedure? Do we do one motion where everyone votes for their choice, or do we do 3 separate motions?
We will do 3.
Okay, so in that case, I would first like to seek a motion to nominate Larry, who was the first nominated for president.
Wait a second, Nathan. It would be evil of you not to allow your directors to speak on a motion on the table before you take a vote. It's an official action. It's a new motion. Public also gets a right to speak.
Mr. Bradley, we did not even get a motion or a second on that.
You have,
Once the motion and a second, then people get a chance to speak.
yeah, you have that.
Yeah.
I do not have a motion. and a second.
You're trying to
We
divide
don't
up
have a
your
motion
first
and a
motion.
second. We had a motion and a second to close nominations.
And
we
in
had
the
a roll call
past-
vote on closing nominations.
In
We
the
did not have
past,
a
the
motion
method
and a
to which
second
you
to
voted
vote.
was you went around the room and asked who people voted for, sir. That's how you voted
No, we
for the
did
president.
not.
Are you changing the procedure from last year and you're not going to go around the room and ask who they vote for? Joy, Rita, or Larry?
I asked our attorney, what is the practice?
The practice
He stated
has
we
been-
should have a
it's the
vote
board's
each
opinion.
time for each person.
I know, but it's the board's decision, not the attorney's decision. And in the past, the way that these elections have taken place is you now, first of all, open up the comment to have people speak, and then they vote in total of the 3 people that are currently being elected, with the person with the most votes earning the spot. That's kind of how it works, guys. I don't know why you're changing it. I know you guys planned this all out. I understand that. I'm not letting you anymore. I'm tired of this stuff that you guys are doing. And Wayne, under his breath, using vulgarities. We don't need it. We need a government, sir. We need a government
Bradley,
of and
last
by
year
and
you
for the
complained
people to
about
be
the process,
restored,
so we changed
to
it
be
have
restored,
individual votes
to
on
be
each person.
restored
Now
to
you're
this district.
complaining about this process.
You're right. I'm
What
going
else
to
is
complain. We need a government of and by and for the people restored to this community, sir. Did you read the Auditor General's report and the evil that you pervade upon these students and these community members?
Mr. Bradley,
Did you
please
not
allow the
take the
meeting to move
chastising
forward.
of this
I'd like to
district?
seek a motion to
All 3
nominate
should be
Larry
done.
Stern to elect Larry Stern president.
So moved, Wayne.
So moved by Wayne. Second.
Wait a second. So if he gets 5 votes, does that mean that you're not going to vote for Joy and you're not going to have a vote for others?
A vote will be held for all 3 people who were nominated.
And then what are you going to do? Think this through, guys. Then what are you going to do?
Mr. Bradley, if
You're
Mr.
evil.
Stern gets all
You're
5 votes,
evil. You're
then there's
evil.
no reason to have the next
You're
2
evil.
elections.
You're right.
Because the
They're
president's already
blocked.
been
They're
selected.
completely represented blocked. You are correct. The evil has taken over. You are correct 100%. I agree. You have a cabal. There's 5 of you on this board. They have been proven to be evil by the Auditor General. They have demonized
The Auditor
this
General
district.
did not
The
prove anybody
community-
evil.
They are. They have violated the law. They were in non-compliance. They had a responsibility. They didn't.
Is there any
meet it.
other
That is
comment from
corrupt.
Mr.
That is
Bradley,
corrupt
would you
as
like to
corrupt
comment
gets.
on the motion that is on the floor?
I did make a
please?
comment, sir. You're cheating the system. You're
I
cheating
have
the
a motion on
public.
the floor. I believe we still
You're
need a
cheating the
second.
system and you're cheating the public.
Second.
You're cheating the system
Second
and
by
you're
Rita.
cheating
Do any
the
board
public.
members have a
There's
comment to
person
make
with
on
their
this
hand raised. They should have a
nomination?
right to speak. They have a right to speak. They have a right to speak. You're not letting them. You're cheating the public.
Mr. Bradley, if you would
You
let me
vote-
get a word in, please. I first
No, I
asked
will
if
not,
any
because you are
board
evil
members
and you
have
shouldn't
a
even
comment.
hold a position on this board with any authority. It's
Mr.
bad.
Cleaver, is
You
there
should
anyone
just
like to
resign.
speak on the motion, please?
If no other board members have comments on this, then
I
Mr.
have
Cleaver,
comments
can we
on this,
move
but the
forward to
people
public-
should speak first.
Mr. Cleaver, could we please move forward to public comment? Looks like Mr. Kemmer, I see first.
Can you hear me?
Sorry, Mr. Kemmer, yes.
Okay. I'm sort of, I understand the way it's going. However, I do agree that the whole process would be void if it weren't, everybody would have their equal vote. I understand the solicitor's point of view that 5, if vote for Larry, it's over. However, personally, I don't know how Larry would even want to do this again, with how much he's been taken over the last few years. And as a friend, I see that he has good faith with the community, but I would applaud him for even wanting to do it. However, I think that the other two would be perfectly fine as well. End of comment.
And the vote is, do you agree that the vote should not be
Mr.
public?
Shaner?
It should be a private vote and then opened up as a ballot?
Yes. I'm sorry, Mr. Shaner, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Fuller had said that everybody was going to have an opportunity to be voted on, the three that were nominated. However, Mr. Filer says no. If Mr. Stern gets 5 votes, there's no reason to vote on the other 2. So I would like to know which one it is, as Mr. Fuller is the temporary president.
In my opinion, we can go through votes for all 3. Each board member knows that we can ultimately only elect one, so they can vote yes or no for the one that they would choose to elect. In the event that none of the 5 achieve 5 votes, then we'll review the process further at that point.
Okay. Thank you. Was the process different last year? And I apologize that I was not on that meeting.
To be honest, I don't remember either. I'm sorry.
Does any other board member know if the process was different? I believe, Mr. Stern, you indicated that it was.
Yes, I did indicate that it was. And number one, we weren't virtual. It made it different. Number two, at this point, we have received complaints from folks about it not being proper by having 3 names and voting 3 different times, 1 time for the 3. So we have decided to do it in this fashion, so each person gets the opportunity to have people speak on their behalf.
Would it not then make sense to go around the room and ask everybody who they would vote for?
That's the roll call vote, Mr. Shaner, and that will happen as we go through each motion.
Thank you, sir.
But by putting Larry first, if he gets 5, you're blocking the opportunity for people to have the comment about Joy and a comment about Rita.
Ms.
And at the
Bose?
same time, by having it as a public open
Ms. Bose?
vote, you're not allowing the
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey, Mr. Cleaver, you don't run this meeting. Nathan does. He's the president. And a
Bradley,
board member
please
speaking.
let Mrs.
And a
Bose
board member is
speak.
speaking. Please be quiet. What we're looking at is fairness.
Yeah,
You're not providing
public
me
comment.
like
Bradley, you had your public comment. Please let Mrs. Bose speak.
she will speak after we are done as a director, but you are bullying this community.
Mr. Bradley, please
You
allow
are
Ms.
bullying
Bose to
this
speak.
community by doing this. You know it. We all know it. Everyone
Again,
sees the
this
writing
is
on the wall.
public comment,
I just want to make
correct?
sure that you prove to yourselves that you know what you're doing. You're being exposed. This is a public meeting. You know what's going on, and we're now making sure that everybody else does too.
Question, Dave.
Go ahead.
Okay, it was decided to do it this way. Who decided it? Who
After the
decided?
negative feedback we
cabal.
received
The
last year
cabal
from the
did.
process.
No,
And I asked
no.
Mr. Filer on his opinion previously to do the proper way to do it, and that is what he suggested, Ms. Bose.
Okay, so he suggested it, but was it ever put before the board to decide it that way?
Ms. Bose, as acting temporary president, I believe that decision would have been mine, and that's how I chose to proceed.
Absolutely not. You do not have authority. No legal authority.
Dave, shut up. Then why did you ask Larry how to do it, Nathan?
I was asking Larry if
No, you asked him,
I asked him what the proper procedure was, yes.
right. So if that's how you decided to do it, why would you ask him what the proper procedure was? That's
So
all
he
I'm
could do
asking.
the proper procedure.
Yes, so I could follow the proper procedure. Once Larry informed me, I moved forward. My
But-
decision to follow that proper procedure.
The point I'm making, Nathan, and I'm not attacking you personally, is Larry's not the president at the moment.
I understand.
So
Larry-
therefore, what he says is the proper procedure really is the same as anybody else saying what the proper procedure was. If the procedure was being changed, it really should have been put before the board to change it. All I want you to do is follow the rules. It's not personal, okay?
Ms. Bose, the reason I asked Larry is because Larry is far more familiar with the procedure of running a meeting, obviously, than I am, as he's been present here for some time. That was my only reason for asking him.
And also,
I'm
Barb,
missing
in
the point.
defense of Larry, he's also has 5 years of being shown in the Auditor General's report for being non-compliant to Pennsylvania school code.
I know
So
that,
I'm
Dave.
telling you, this is the cabal shoving upon you a rubber stamped with no legal authority board of 5 members that are blocking all common sense.
Dave?
Larry's wife works for the district. Her boss is the superintendent, who's the subordinate to Larry. This is a personal attack on the character of the elected directors that are in office making decisions and acting on our behalf as our government politicians. They are evil in what they are doing, and they are snowballing this community into debt. They have encumbered this community. Our children's children will be paying this debt because of their evil actions. It needs to end. It ends now.
Autumn,
And we should not, Mr. Cleaver, I'm still speaking. It should not allow Mr.
public
Cleaver.
comment, and she just.
Mr. Cleaver should not be allowed to have
Autumn?
his little comments and try to stop the evil from continuing.
Okay. Go
He
ahead,
should be
public
preventing it. And Larry, you too should stay out of that, and you should also resign from this board.
Yes, Autumn?
I just wanted to comment. I know every board does things a little bit differently. We at Borough Council do our nominations similarly, where we take the nominations and then we vote one by one. If the first person that we vote on gets the majority of the vote, we do not vote on the rest. However, I do believe the easiest way to solve this is to just open up public comment on the 3 nominees rather than public comment on each individual one. That way, anybody could comment on the 3 nominees, even if it would stop after the first person. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to comment on any of the 3 nominees before we move forward?
There is none at this time.
Okay, I'd like to seek a roll call vote to elect
You're
Larry.
lying. There's 2. I see their hands raised now.
Mr. Bradley, it's Ms. Bose and Autumn who both had an opportunity.
That was
to
about
speak.
talking about how to do the vote. Now we're having a conversation of what we think about Larry being president, Rita being president, or Joy being president, because that's what just Autumn said,
Mr.
and
Bradley,
Nathan
you're
agreed
not the
to.
president
Mr.
or
Cleaver,
temporary president right
Autumn,
now.
Mr.
I'm not
Cleaver,
taking any
one more
directive
time,
from you.
Mr. Cleaver, Autumn just suggested, and our
Mr.
president
Just
agreed.
Just for clarification, Ms. Bose, do you have any further comment? Can we allow Ms. Bose to speak, please?
Hey,
Ms. Bose? Yes.
hear me?
Yes.
I think we need some new blood in the presidency. That's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you.
Mr. Shaner?
Yes, thank you. I just want to make sure that everyone who's on understands, is this the only opportunity we're going to have to comment on any of the 3 nominations for president before a vote is taken?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I agree with Ms. Bose. I think there needs to be some new blood in the presidency. I think we can see from the Auditor General's reports, there needs to be some changes made. Some things need to be shaken up a little bit. Things are not going well. I think Joy Beers has shown courage, integrity, honesty throughout, and I think she'd make a great president. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaner.
Mr. Kemmer?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like to make a comment on the 3. While I believe Joy would do a fine job, I do appreciate during the meetings how Rita is steadfast with her thoughts, steadfast with standing up to Dave in her own way, which I appreciate as a citizen. I do believe, like others do, that a change wouldn't be a bad thing. I do believe the job Larry Stern has done has been well serviced. And personally, I don't see how he would want to even do it any longer. End of comment.
Thank you.
Ms. White?
Hello.
Yes, Ms. White?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I agree that there needs to be changes as well. Me personally, like I had said previous meetings, I'm not a big fan of the school board, and more that I'm reading up on, I'm not liking it. And as people have stated before, I'm not sure why Mr. Stern would want to run that again. Could somebody just fill me in about how the process of just the school board members are allowed to vote? That I'm just not understanding. If it could be elaborated on just a little bit more, and why the public doesn't have much of a say who runs the education of their children.
Ms. White, the 9 board members are elected by the public, typically for 1 year and 5 on the alternating 2 years. But this is just for position in the board as far as who's going to serve in the various roles. And those positions are elected by the board members on a yearly basis.
Okay, so why, that's what I'm not understanding. Why is it just the board members on a yearly basis?
It's
I
spelled
wasn't
out
part
in
of
the
the
school
school
code that
district
way,
then.
Ms. White.
But in addition, hold on, she brings up a great point, and she's correct. In addition to the school code that says it's our responsibility to elect a president to serve as our board president, they serve at the will of the board. So the board can change this at any time. And the board also has a responsibility in LASD policy that we listen to the stakeholders. And all the stakeholders should have been polled. What do you guys think? How's our district doing? What should we change? What should we do? We are public servants. They have a say. I have to force this board to allow our community to have a say. You guys were blocking them, saying they don't have a right to say because they could have spoke at the beginning of the meeting. That's ridiculous. The activities of Larry Stern, I mean, he's literally in court right now for several offenses, acting as president
In
and failing to
lawsuits
meet
filed by you.
Yes, and one by Barbeau's, and I believe others are forthcoming. I can see it because he continues to violate the sanctity of his oath and the fact that he has responsibilities under the Pennsylvania School Code that he swore to uphold for the people. They elected a public official, a politician, to uphold the law, uphold school code, provide education, provide supervision, provide oversight. When he took that position and then thumbed his nose at the community and didn't provide the checks and balances and didn't provide the oversight and didn't call the special meeting when kids were being hurt in our district and didn't call a special meeting. When they didn't call a special meeting for the transportation when it got cut from the budget, the board had a responsibility for the budget. These guys, these 5, rubber stamped the administration. They cut the transportation. They did nothing about it. And the people were up in arms. They wanted to be heard. And these people silenced them by using Larry to not call a special meeting. Yet the code says when 3 of us put it in writing, he has to do his job. And we did put it in writing, and he chose not to. And now it's time for the judge to decide whether Larry has the legal authority or not the legal authority, as he wrote his prerogative, to thumb his nose at the Pennsylvania School Code, although he knows what it says and neglected to do it anyway. This is evil, guys. You have a cabal of evil.
Mr. Fuller, could we please
No,
call
you
this
cannot until
vote?
you
We have
understand
heard
what you're
all this
doing, Rita.
before. This is repetitious,
Yet it's not.
and we need to call this vote.
No, you need
we
to
have any
listen
other
to
further
what's
comments from
happening.
any
And
board
you have
members?
other people that have their hands raised, and you need to listen to the public. You serve them, Rita.
Not that I'd like to request a roll call vote.
Nope,
for the
you have
election of
other people with their
president.
hands raised. People have their hands raised. You got to listen to them.
They had an opportunity to speak.
They
Mr.
did not after the other person has spoken. They can
No,
make extra
roll call vote,
comment.
please.
That's not how it works,
It's
Mr.
exactly how it
Bradley.
works. It's a conversation. We have to seek. Pennsylvania School Code requires that the LASD policy 011 is
there's
applied. We have an obligation by law, our own code, our own rules, that we
The
have to let
obligation is for
to
a
seek input.
reasonable opportunity, Mr.
But now
Bradley.
the reasonable opportunity is to seek input. We're supposed to seek it. And even
Nobody
in the
has a
Auditor
reasonable
General-
opportunity when you're
even-
doing this.
I know, you can argue all you want.
Nobody can speak when you're like this, David.
I
So
understand
there
that, but
is
you
no
give open
reasonable opportunity for anyone to say anything about anything.
Actually,
Now,
actually-
everything you're saying, you have repeated ad nauseum to us day after day. You have nothing new to say. The public has all heard this before. Yes, we know you think we're all evil rubber stampers, yada, yada, yada. But this board has the right to elect its own leadership. This board which is 9 of us, which was, we're elected by the public, and this board, the 5, as you call us, have a majority, and the majority rules. So it's time to call the vote. We have heard you long enough. If you promise to be quiet and only let the public speak, then we can continue on with this circus. Otherwise, let's move on.
Actually, Rita,
Partinio,
as
roll call
5,
vote,
excuse
please.
me, I'm going to speak for a second. She spoke, I am. And we were quiet. And there's other people who have their hand raised, and they should have a right to speak. Rita,
believe
you
there's
are
a
the
roll
5.
call
Excuse
vote
me,
by the
please.
president.
No, Rita, you are the 5. However, you also made rules for yourself to be governed by. They're called LASD policy. One of them is 011, which requires you
Very
to sit-
familiar with the Mr.
Then why are
Bradley.
you
I
cutting me
don't
off?
need you to tell me. Please
why don't you
move
exercise
on,
and do it?
Mr. Fuller.
Just because you have your 5 does not mean you should
We
not.
just please
or
repeat
shirk
the
responsibility.
motion that they're voting on, please. So
I
they're
have a
familiar.
motion, a second, to elect Larry Stern president. I'd like a roll call vote, please.
People have their hand raised. They should be listened to.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
No.
Repeat that motion again.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
No.
Mr. Richard Belts,
No.
Mr. David Bradley,
I want this motion read one more time before I vote, please.
There is a motion by Mr. Wayne Wentz, seconded by Mrs. Rita Spinelli, to elect Larry Stern as president.
Absolutely not. Let's remove that evil.
Mr. Larry Stern,
Yes.
5-4, motion carries.
Okay, next I'd like to seek a motion to elect Joy Beers president. Do I have a motion, a second?
The board's already.
So moved. So moved. But you
First by Mr. Belts. Second by Ms. Mahalik. Do I have any comments from members of the board?
Can you resign, Larry? Can you resign, Nathan, please?
Okay, no further comment. I'd like to
No,
seek-
I got another comment. Hold
Council
on.
roll call
No,
vote?
no, I got another comment. The comment is, Nathan, you have a responsibility to this public. Stop shirking it. You have a responsibility to let the people speak. You have a responsibility to change these people on this board. You have the same cabal year after year, hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. $3 million contract with the Auditor General said we didn't even get a benefit, and our subordinate administration signed it, got a stipend, and this board didn't do anything about it. $3 million. Poof, gone. And now you don't have money for transportation. If that's not evil, if that doesn't demand that these people get a right to speak for their $3 million that was taken from them in taxes and given to a third party with zero benefit to the community. Disgust me, guys. You disgust me. Wayne, how did you not provide supervision to students? How did you on the athletic committee not do your job? Stephen, how do you not do this job?
Again, Mr.
Rita,
Fuller,
how do you, go ahead, cut me off, Mr. Cleaver. But
Yes, because
Rita,
we're
how do
trying
you
to
not follow your own
meeting.
code? The Auditor General said you're not
Continue.
even
Can we
following
have a
your
roll
own
call vote, please?
policies as you're doing now. End it, guys. You got to stop.
To elect Joy Beers treasurer. I'm sorry, Joy Beers president.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
No.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
No.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
No.
Miss Joy Beers,
Abstain to avoid conflict.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Very well respected, Joy. Too bad Larry doesn't have that character. Yes, very much so. Joy should be the president and Larry should step aside. He's already been in trouble. He's cost this district too much money and
Mr.
lawsuits
Nathan
for
Fuller.
failing to do his
No.
duty under the Pennsylvania School
Mr.
Code.
Larry Stern. Three, no, 3 yes, 5 no, 1 abstention, motion fails.
And last, I'd like to seek a motion, a second, to elect Rita Spinelli as president.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Bradley, second by Mr. Belts. Any comments from members of the board?
I have a couple.
Mr. Bradley?
In contradiction to the Office of Auditor General and the past adjudication of legal authority for the release of financial records, the Office of Open Record has that authority and has proven that things should be done a certain way. Rita has taken action against the community in regards to the release of legally permitted public financial records. This should disqualify her from holding public office, but at least disqualify her from being considered as any officer on this board. She has taken the stance as a stamper, used her 5 authority to block the public from having access to their government, and is loose with the Pennsylvania School Code and the responsibilities that she swore an oath to the people, and spits in the face of the people when she fails to apply the law. I think she thinks she's above the law. As a director, Rita allows the subordinate administration to create the budget in which transportation was removed. It negates the benefits of a second set of eyes on the district funds and removes the checks and balances the people have mandated to be applied in person by law for such position. To neglect the laws of the Commonwealth is to spit in this face of the public that has been elected to serve. Not only should she not be provided the ability to shirk such responsibility, she should resign and allow someone that respects the oath of office to serve the people. I have convinced myself that I'm removing my motion. I just can't do it. I'm thinking, I thought it was a good idea, and I'm realizing I'm removing my motion. I apologize. If someone else would like to make the motion, they can. I withdraw that motion. I can't vote for her, and therefore I can't make that motion. Thank you.
He lives, it's outside.
You nominated her.
I know, and after listening to the public and listening to her rant and her cackling and her arrogance, total arrogance against the public, I decided I can't do it. I can't do it. I changed my mind. Thank you. Sorry.
None of which happened between the time you nominated her and the time with your nomination.
Oh, definitely. Oh, it definitely happened. When she spoke up and decided that she was not going to, when she still decided not to use the Lehighton Area School District Code that says 011, we're supposed to seek the input of the public. And after the Auditor General said you got to follow your own laws too, and then she's choosing not to, which she just did today. She was supposed to show up today and do a job for these people, and she has chosen not to. So, yeah, you know what? I can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't let evil continue to rule this
Thank you,
district.
Dave. I'm glad you can't do it. I'm glad you can't do it because I don't want to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. At this time, Mr. Stern has been elected president. He can assume the chair. Mr. Stern?
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Mr. Seaver, could you please advance the agenda? Thank you.
You have people with their hand raised. You should have listened to them.
Good memory.
There was no motion on the floor.
This is true.
Our responsibility is to seek input, sir. Seek input. Thank you.
This time I will call for nominations for vice president, please.
I nominate Nathan Fuller. This is Rita.
Wayne, second.
The reason I'm nominating Nathan Fuller is that he is the only one on this board who has children in our school. I believe very strongly that younger parents, people who actually have a stake here, need to be represented on the board. And I feel Nathan has the ability to take an excellent leadership role, and that's why I'm nominating him for vice president.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller.
All right.
Any other nominations for vice president, please? Request a motion to close nominations.
Did we get a second? Oh yeah, Wayne.
This is Wayne. I make a motion to close nominations.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion on Closing nominations. Hearing none, is there any public comment on closing nominations, Mr. Cleaver?
At this point, I see none, Mr. Stern.
Your roll call vote, close nominations, Mr. Canino?
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belt, Mr. Richard Belt, Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belt. Eight yes, 0 no, 1 absent. Motion passes.
Thank you. I need a motion and a second to elect Nathan Fuller as vice president.
I'll make the motion. Steve?
Second, Wayne.
Motion by Steve, a second, Mr. Holland, a second by Mr. Wentz. Or to elect Nathan Fuller as vice president. Is there any comment from the board, please?
My only comment would be Mr. Fuller will now have to resign as treasurer.
Correct.
My comment is in contradiction to the Office of Auditor General and the past adjudication of legal authority for the release of financial records. Nathan has taken a stance against the community in regards to the release of legally permitted public financial records. And to take such a stance as a public official is, in my opinion, completely evil. Nathan has stated that some Pennsylvania school codes are obsolete, yet has failed to identify which ones in public meetings. If he is not going to honor his oath, and he's not going to serve the people, and he's not going to follow our own policies as the Pennsylvania Auditor General told us we should do, I think that he should not be a member of this board, and he should not be an officer of the community. The treasurer, he allows the subordinate administration to create the treasurer's report, which negates the benefits of a second set of eyes on the district funds. This district is going broke. They spent $3 million on a contract, got nothing for it according to the Auditor General report, and it was signed by a subordinate administrator that wasn't even properly reviewed by this board. $3 million. And nothing has taken place because we have a group of cabal rubber stampers like Rita that are going to call the question and say, I heard it before, but have not done the job. To allow or even consider Nathan Fuller, even though he has kids in the district, we have people in this district that have been injured, that have been arrested for lack of supervision. He does not belong to have a seat if he's not going to stand up and act as a public oversight board member as required by Pennsylvania School Code so that we can protect these students and save this community. The evil has gone on long enough. Thank you. I think he should be not nominated. I think he should just walk away from this whole board. He's a disgrace.
Any further comment from any other board member? Any public comment, Mr. Flavor?
Not at this time.
Roll call vote, Mr. Canio?
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
No.
Mr. Richard Belt, Mr. Richard Belt, Mr. David Bradley,
No, we got to end the evil in this community.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
No.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
5 yes, 3 no. Motion passes.
At this point, the committees will remain as they are. So item 8, we will bypass item 8 on the agenda. And item 9, and we'll go to item 10. And I'd like to take the item 10 as a consent agenda. I'd like a motion and a second to approve and advertise the dates for the school board meeting, policy meeting.
I'm sorry, hold on. Hold on a second. Why are you silencing the people, Larry? Larry, why are you taking
meetings and academic
Larry, come on, Larry. Why are you stopping and blocking the ability for the public to have people on committees so they have someone they can speak to bring to this board? And why are you taking it as your prerogative to silence those people when you have an agenda item that they showed up here to participate in, and silence them repeatedly as you're doing now? When you stack these committees, this should be elected officials. They should be volunteers. And you, as president, should not be on any of them because you are according to our code, allowed to participate in the meeting, but not as a member of the meeting, an ex officio member. And I think that you're adding to this cabal again, Larry. What are you doing here, bud? Why would you skip past this? It's my comment, but the public has a right to do it. I make a motion. You do not have the right to just do this without a motion by consent. I do not consent to you doing this.
I did not put that as the consent agenda item. I said all committees will remain as they are. I am going to the consent agenda item concerning the meeting date, sir.
No, sir. No, sir. You have number 8 on the agenda. If you're going to remove it from the agenda, take a motion, take public comment, and then exercise your theoretical lawful authority, which you are taking that I don't think you have, sir. You do not have the right to say, look, I'm God in this district and I don't feel like it. I don't want to hear from Dave. I don't want to hear from the community. I don't want to hear that our negotiating and personal committee meeting hasn't met in 3 years. I don't want to hear that the budget and finance committee is going to be run by the same knuckleheads that the Auditor General just chastised for going over, or the buildings and grounds committee that put a stadium on without even having a budget, or the policy committee that allows officers to carry guns, arrest students instead of protecting them. We're supposed to have people protecting our students, sir. They're supposed to be there to protect against outside evil, you know? And then you know what we find out? That's the inside evil, because we got people that are on this board that fail to honor a formal written complaint by people that their kids are getting bullied. Nathan has kids in this district. Do you think if his kid's getting bullied that he wouldn't be able to have something in front of this board saying, hey guys, this is a problem in our district? Why don't they have the same voice he has? He's a public official. You guys have a problem here and you're trying to shove it under the rug. I'm not letting you anymore, Larry. I'm not letting you. So this is not a consent. You do not have the right. If you make a motion, you make a motion that you move on. I'm making a motion. I'd like a second that we honor our agenda and we still see number 8 and 9 because it's important.
These are my appointments. They are my choice.
They're not your appointments, sir.
If someone has an interest from the board in participating in a committee, please let me know and I will consider it.
Not according to your LASD policy.
That's it.
Not according to your policy, sir.
Appointments made by the president.
Not according to your policy, sir.
Yes, they are, Mr. Bradley. They are appointments made by the president.
You do not have the right to stack this board. You do not have that right.
They're not currently on. Please let me know.
You do not have that right, sir. You do not have the right to be a member of those committees. You do not have a right to stack these committees. You do not have that right. You do not have that legal right. Show me that legal right.
You tell me why I don't have the right.
Because your LASD policy says you do not.
Legal mumbo jumbo that you present.
No, your own policy says you do not, sir. Your own policy.
9. The president will conduct election of the following positions. If not filled, the current appointees continue till their new appointments.
One more time. The public has the right to speak.
We
don't want the cabal, Larry.
Committee for December
the cabal's
2020,
over, Larry.
December 21.
Your evil cabal is over. You're not allowed to violate school code anymore. You don't not allowed to be in noncompliance.
Is Mr. Fowler.
Nope, you're not allowed. Sorry. Not allowed.
Currently, that is Mr. Fowler.
Not allowed. Not allowed. Can't do it.
Are
Not
there
allowed,
any-
Larry. You don't have that right. You do not have the authority to do it. You can't stack committee meetings. You can't stack and then make yourself a member of them. You do not have that right. You do not have that authority. And I'm stopping you from
Thank
using
you,
this
Mr. Bradley.
fake
You may
authority.
attempt, but you're not going to stop me from moving
I
forward
am.
with this agenda. We're
I am.
already
You're not-
wasting
no, you don't
people's
have a right.
time
You don't have a
trying
right.
to move through this process.
You don't have a right. You have to either
Larry
do the
Stern
committees.
nominates Nathan Fuller to remain as the CCTI Institute representative for Joint Operating Committee. Are there any other nominations for the CCTI representative to the Joint Operating Committee?
Don't you need a second?
I'm looking.
Not
at this
the
point.
Lord Master Larry Stern, lying Larry Stern, making stuff up in a school board meeting when he doesn't even follow his own policy, and he's been here for a decade, doesn't even listen to the Auditor General. No, Larry gets to do whatever he wants, apparently. And
No,
you know
I
what's really
think
funny?
one that gets to do whatever they want.
You know what's really funny, Larry? We all are watching and we know now, Larry. We know. We can read the policy, Larry.
Mr.
We all
Bradley,
know.
can you
Larry,
please
we all
stop
know.
moving
No, we know.
forward?
We
It's
know,
become
Larry.
Very difficult to even follow.
I
with
know, because we know.
I'm
and you're
going
not
to
gonna let it
second the
happen.
motion to
We're
keep
not gonna let it
Nathan.
happen. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to let Larry bulldoze over a community,
Are there
spend
any
$3
other
million with his
nominations
wife's
for
boss to allow him to sign a contract where he gets a stipend from the community
CCTI
and no
representative
oversight.
to the Joint
Not going
Operating
to
Committee?
happen anymore, Larry. Larry, it really shouldn't happen. Can you just be a gentleman
could
to the
we
community,
repeat
please?
that motion,
Can you
please?
please be
We
a gentleman to the
are-
community, Larry, and let them do
Hearing
their
none,
job?
there are no
Can you
further
give them the right to
nominations.
speak?
I need a motion and a second to close nominations and elect as the Carbon Career and Technical Institute representative to the Joint Operating Committee, Nathan Fuller.
Do we have a motion? If not, I will make that motion. If we have a motion, I will second.
That is the motion. I need a second, please.
Second, Wayne.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion from the board.
I don't think you have the right, Larry, to just ignore the agenda, skip past it, and then you assign all these committees. I really don't think you have the right. And if you look
Board
at your own
Policy 5
policies,
says
if you look
committees
at your own
appointed by the
policies, you
president.
cannot be, if you look at your own policy, you're not allowed to do it.
The policy specifically says he's allowed to do it.
Only if the board doesn't allow him to do it. That's the only way, by consent. We get to decide who's on these committees. We get to choose. We get to have a discussion.
And,
You
we
just
get
lied
have
to
a
the public,
debate,
Mr. Bradley.
And the public has
Any
a right to
other-
speak and decide whether or not Larry should have the right to stack them, put himself on
A
it
public
as an
comment
ex-officio
on
member,
Mr.
because
Fuller
it's not a
being
full
elected
committee if
as
he's on it.
Carbon County
If he's
Career
on it.
Technical Institute representative to the Joint Operating Committee. Mr. Cleaver, are there any public comment, please?
Ms. Bose, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, I would just like to ask that you advance the agenda so we can see what it is. We're still
you.
on election of vice president.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's it.
No other comment, Mr. Stern?
Roll call vote, Mr. Pagano.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
No?
Mr. Richard Belts, Mr. David Bradley,
No, we should remove the evil from the community. Nathan should hold no office in this district at all for his past actions.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
No.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern,
Yes.
5-3, motion carries.
On to item B, need a motion, I need for the Carbon Career and Technical Institute alternate representative to the Joint Operating Committee. Please, anyone for nominations?
This Wayne would like to nominate Steve Holland.
Second.
Any other nominations as alternate? motion and a second to close nominations and elect Stephen Holland as the Carbon Career and Technical Institute alternate representative to the Joint Operating Committee.
So moved, Wayne.
Second by Nathan.
Any board comment?
Just to close the nomination, or to, you're moving to elect Steve?
To close and elect Steve, as there were no other nominations.
Okay, then I'll make my comment. Steve, in the years reviewed by the Auditor General, where he was a board member, it was documented that he failed to follow Pennsylvania school code. He didn't do his job. $3 million got spent by a subordinate administration without proper review by this board. And we did not receive benefits from the $3 million taken from the community and given to a third party. We paid a stipend. We paid a stipend with taxpayers' money for the person that signed that contract. And this board of director, this public servant, failed this community to do his job. He should not be having any extra authority by any means on this board. And then you add into the fact that he's on the athletic committee where we had injured students. He did nothing. We had emails written to this board, and they were supposed to do something as a director. If it was his kid, would he have done something? But when it was someone else's child, to protect the students is the primary directive of these directors. We are an oversight board. This man has not provided that service to this community for decades. He's on record of saying he never even had the feasibility study, and he didn't even read it, yet he voted on it. How could anyone within any sense of a common sense allow this to go forward? How could you let him have a position of authority on this board? I don't think it's available. I mean, even if you're going to be the rubber stampers that Rita and Nathan and Larry and Steve and Wayne, Unky Wayne is going to be, I mean, you guys got to stop this, right? What are you doing? When does the people take precedent? After $100 million in debt, after grievances from your own staff members over negotiation techniques, after failures to meet the budget, after failures to provide transportation, failures to provide security and safety for our students. When does it end, Larry? Rita, when does it end? Nathan.
It ends now because I want this to move on. So it ends
do, because
now.
you can't take it. You know that these things are true.
Public
You
comment
know that they are true.
on this particular
I
item.
know, but you know that they're true. They hurt you, don't they, Rita? To hear the truth hurts. To hide the truth is your goal. It will not be hidden anymore by anyone. We're going to make sure that everybody knows that these stakeholders have a right. They have a right to be served by public
comment on this agenda item, please?
Yes, Ms. Bose.
You can yell and silence me all you want, but the reality is, you know it.
Ms. Bose.
Can I speak? I would like to know if Steve is elected as the alternate, will he actually read anything that's necessary that he would need to read? That's my only public comment, because apparently he has not done so in the past. Thank you.
Mr. Cleaver, is there any other public comment?
None at this time.
Can we have Steve answer the question? The stakeholders saw it.
Mr. Shaner?
Input. Why don't we have him answer? Steve,
sorry,
will you
there's
answer?
Roll call vote.
Why
on
don't
item
Steve
two,
answer?
please.
And you have Mr.
Mr.
Shaner has his hand raised.
Mr. Stern, I'm sorry, Mr. Shaner. I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Mr. Shaner.
No, that's okay. I appreciate that. I was just going to ask if Mr. Holland was going to answer the question that was asked. Thank you.
No other comments, Mr. Stern.
Is he going to answer? Wait. He should answer the public. He's a public servant. He has a duty.
He has no
sought
obligation
input.
to
He has a
answer the
responsibility to answer, an ethical,
Roll call
moral
vote, Mr.
responsibility
Centennial. I know
to
you'll have to
answer.
speak over. My apologies.
Answer, Steve.
Ms. Joy Beers,
No.
Mr. David Bradley,
Steve should answer. It's moral and ethical. So no.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
No.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern. Is he on? Mr. Richard Belts? Mr. Larry Stern?
Mr. Cleaver, has Mr. Belts left the meeting?
I do not see him on here now.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
5 yes, 3 no, motion carries.
On to board meeting and committee meeting dates. Item 10, I'd like to take that items A through F as a consent agenda item for the meeting dates for the committees. Is there any comment on me taking the items A through F as a consent agenda item?
I have a comment on making this a consent item. Nowhere on your meeting does it show that when you cancel the public's opportunity to have access to their government, which is what a committee is, are you having a postponement date? I don't think that this board should be allowed to cancel a meeting without postponing it. You've had numerous cancellations over the last 3 years. You've prevented the people from having access to their government. And if they're not going to do the oversight, at least let the people have the oversight, because according to the Auditor General's report, you guys have failed to not only follow your own policies, to follow the Pennsylvania School Code, but you also failed the community in your responsibility to provide oversight. And these committee meetings, and the way you've stacked them, Larry, is wrong. You're silencing a community so that you don't have to hear all the things that you've done wrong.
I don't believe he's silencing the community, Mr. Bradley. We're just silencing you because we need to get work done. When you're around, nothing gets accomplished. That's why the committees are the way they are.
Actually, Rita, it's nice that you tried to cut me off and disrespected me as a board member, but the reality is the things that you're doing when they're against Pennsylvania School Code and the law, they shouldn't get done. But the things that need to get done, like protecting students, providing transportation, overseeing contracts, overseeing the bills, making sure the bank statements are reviewed, making sure the right to know law is complied with and the public has the information prior to making a vote, making sure the contracts are reviewed, making sure the public gets to see the contracts before their government exercises those contracts so they can make public comment. Because we are the servants of those people. You need to restore a government of, by, and for the people, not as you called it, we have a quorum and therefore we can do what we want. That's wrong, ma'am, and you know it, and yet you continually sit there in a meeting and say, shut up, everybody, call the question, we don't want to hear it from Dave. Well, I might be the only one that doesn't get bullied in this room. There's 39 people in this room that should have a right to speak on every motion so that I don't have to be the one that speaks. Because right now, when they give me the information to give to you, you don't listen to it. You've turned your email off, you've turned your ears off, and it's a shame. You're a public servant. Stop being a politician. So I make an amendment that we add to the bottom of the calendars of all these committee meetings that any meeting that is canceled will be assigned or will not be no meeting will be canceled, only postponed. I think that should be done.
Bradley, we don't even have a motion on the floor.
And at the same time, you have removed the opportunity for these meetings to take place. I think you should add opportunities for the meetings to take place. Because the public has a right to address their government.
Need a motion and a second to approve the meeting dates as from items A through F. Let me get the motion and a second out, please. Need a motion and a second to approve
I'll
the
make a
meeting dates
motion.
A through F.
So moved by Nathan.
Second, Rita.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on the meeting dates, Mr. Cleaver?
Ms. Bowman?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. I just have a question. The academic meeting dates appear to be every other month and not many during the summer. I was wondering if we could take a harder look at that to try to increase some kind of conversation about our academics, pre-K through 12 in our district. And I would, really encourage the board to consider meeting monthly, just like you do with the policy meetings, because I think that's very critical. I mean, that's what we're here for, is educating students. And I would like the board to entertain that if possible. Thank you.
I would agree with Ms. Bowman, and I also think you should add in January's and February's meetings for the other committees that were missed. And I also think we should readdress the floor and allow Ms. Bowman, who was also part of the school board during the period of time which this Auditor General report was done, so that she can elaborate on some of the things that she might like to apologize for, so that maybe through her good stewardship and recognizing of the mistakes that took place, that maybe Wayne, who's still on his board, Larry, who's still on his board, and Steve, who's still on his board, can take that and apologize to this public because of what took place within this community by a board that silenced its community.
Any other public comment, Mr. Cleaver?
I think we should allow her to speak. She has a right.
Ms. Bose?
Yeah, I'm not positive, but I do believe you passed a motion that all the committees would meet once a month. But I would have to check through the minutes to double check to make sure it was all, but I do believe it was.
No, we alternated policy to meet every month, Mrs. Bose. It was
Okay,
previously academic affairs and policy would alternate months previously. And we will consider Mrs. Bowman's request.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried doing that. They blocked it last time, Barb, if you remember. But I did get the policy committee to meet once a month. We got that one passed, but they blocked the other ones.
Okay.
Back to the evil stuff,
I believe also too, if we did have a motion, this motion here, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Father, would take precedence than the most recent motion with these dates.
Right.
Any other public comment, Mr. Cleaver?
I believe Mr. Shaner has his hand. Yes, Mr. Shaner?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. How many committee meetings were canceled in the last year? Do we know?
I would say out of all of them, and I don't have them in front of me, but I can get that information for you, probably less than 5 out of all of them.
Okay, could we review each committee and see the head of the committee, would they know how many were canceled or how many were rescheduled and made up?
Yeah, I'd have to go look. I know on our website, all our committee meetings are posted. So if there's no meeting that month, that would be either it was canceled or not held at that month, not scheduled.
Okay, well, I think the committee meetings are very important, and I would like the board to consider, if not at least actively putting out an alternative date with the schedule to not cancel meetings and only reschedule them. Thank you.
I would just like to comment too that this was an unusual year because of the pandemic. A lot of our meetings that should have happened back in March and April did not. But since then, there were a few that were canceled. But this is not a typical year, Mr. Shaner. This has been a very difficult one.
And I find it to be false. They cancel meetings frequently, especially when things happen within the community that prevent access to their government, at which point it goes to the board meeting. And then consternation appears and you have 3 and 4 hour board meetings because the things were not addressed in the committee meetings. And therefore it's a way to silence the people, allow Rita not to be held accountable. Like, for instance, we had a balanced budget
Thank you for your
item on the
continued
committee.
comments,
I'm
Mr.
speaking,
Bradley.
sir.
I
I'm
believe a lot of
speaking.
your statements
We
are
had
clearly false.
excuse me, we had a
roll call vote, Mrs.
Excuse me,
Pertinio,
I'm speaking.
please.
We had a balanced budget. You're not going to silence me. We had a balanced
I
budget
am,
on the
Mr.
policy committee.
Pertinio. This is not considered the meeting agenda minutes. This is nothing that you're talking about.
I
Roll
understand, but I
call
am,
vote
because
on
we had a meeting.
dates,
We had a
Mr.
meeting
Pertinio,
talking about the
please.
balanced budget and holding people accountable. And Larry Stern and Rita took privilege of canceling
That
that
is
meeting
not
that
true,
day
sir.
and shut it down.
So inaccurate,
And shut
sir,
it
you're
down
correct. So
because,
inaccurate.
and we have video of it. We have video. And they shut it down because they have a majority, even though Larry's an ex facto member. And they shut it down.
Embarrassing that you sit there and make.
It's not
Although,
embarrassing.
Mr.
It's a
Centennial,
balanced,
thank
even
you.
though a balanced budget is under
You're gonna have to
Pennsylvania
speak
school
over
code
him,
and
I understand that.
a requirement under Pennsylvania school
Mr.
code.
Nathan Fuller?
They chose not to do it. You can silence me all you want or try. It's not going to happen. It's wrong. What you guys do is bad. It's wrong.
Yeah, that's a yes for me.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik?
No.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers?
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern?
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley?
Without the caveat of adding to make sure we don't cancel these meetings and hold these people accountable, I'm going to have to say no, because I think Rita's a liar and she doesn't hold herself accountable.
That is so inappropriate, sir.
No, it's not. It's the truth. The truth is never inappropriate, sir. The truth is never inappropriate.
6 yes, 2 no, motion carries.
On the new business, I need a motion and a second to approve the Homestead Farmstead application mailing agreement with Burke 1 and the Lehighton Area School District for the 2021 school year at a cost not to exceed 37 cents per mailing, funded through the business office enclosure number 7. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second, Wayne.
Any comments on the board on the Homestead mailing? Roll call vote, Mr. Centennial.
Mr. David Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik?
No.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers?
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts? Absent. Mr. Larry Stern?
Yes, I hope people take the application to heart and do file for the homestead, farmstead exclusions. Thank you.
Larry, before you move on that one, just for a second, I know the motion is read the way it was, and I think everyone understands what it was supposed to be, but it's not really accurate because they have extra fees in addition to the 37 cents. So you're saying at a cost not to exceed 37 cents per mailing funded through the business office. It's going to exceed that 37 cents, sir, because you have other fees and you have to add them into the contract. You can't just say just the mailing fee is 37 cents because there is a fee associated with this service. In addition to, it's an hourly fee and it's to be determined. And we should have checked that. We should know that. I think it's okay, but it should be corrected. And without that oversight, I think you guys are doing a disservice to the community.
We are agreeing to the agreement, which the agreement does say 37 cents per mailing. That's why we're agreeing. So the whole agreement is there. The cost that we're not exceeding is the mailing cost. So the agreement has everything listed.
Yeah, but the motion does not, and therefore.
Motion says to approve the application mailing agreement, which is what this whole document is, Mr. Bradley.
I know, but that last sentence, at a cost not to, is a misnomer. It's not at 37 cents per mailing funded. It's not, because you're paying other fees. For you to think that would be very similar.
Mailing costs 37 cents.
One more time. For you to think that would
Mr.
be the same
Bradley,
way
I'm
that you
sorry,
think, hold on, for you to think that would be the same thing as thinking that the NEF didn't have a charge of $3 million.
Okay, on to item B, I need a motion and a second to approve the exemptions per capita and occupational tax per the attached list enclosure number 8. Motion and a second, please.
So moved, Wayne.
Second by Nathan.
Any comment on item B? Hearing none, roll call vote, Mr. Centennial.
Mr. Nathan Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik?
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers?
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts? Absent. Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
8 yes, motion carries.
I have a new business item as well.
Yes, Mr. Bradley.
Thank you. Since Nathan has decided to become the vice president, we're absent a treasurer. I believe we're going to need to fill that position. I suggest that we take nominations for an acting treasurer that's going to actually follow and comply with the current listing of Pennsylvania School Code and
We
confirm.
need to first accept his
confirm-
resignation
No,
before
don't.
we.
No, we don't. He already resigned. He already said he did. He picked another choice. He doesn't have the right to do both. What, do you think he's just going to try to do both without him accepting his resignation?
No, you would give
Get
him
rid
the
of him.
opportunity
No,
to
he's gone.
gracefully
He's
resign
gone. He
his
took a chance.
position, Mr.
He's
Bradley, instead of
gone. If
being
he's
the
going to
bully
resign,
that
he should
you
resign
are.
as a board. Look, if he's going to resign, let him resign as a board member. I like that. I'll agree with that. And I love hearing him resign from these things. But the reality is,
Stern, can we please?
the
move
reality
forward
is,
without
the reality is, we need a
comments continued by Mr. Bradley.
it's not. It's truth never hurts.
No,
The
Mr.
people
Bradley,
that-
you're correct, but you know, you step in and don't allow things to occur.
Okay, well, you're right.
Oh,
I'm going to step
everybody
in and
knew
do my
that this
duty.
had to happen, sir.
I know. And I also
So
stepped in to make sure
basically-
people.
So basically what happened,
So, at
Hold
this
on.
point.
Hold on, I'm going to make sure. I'm going to make sure that
for
people have a right to speak too.
nominations for
I'm going to
treasurer.
step in and make sure they have a right to speak. I'm going to do that, Larry.
I
I'm
will
not letting you do it.
I will open up nominations for treasurer.
I'd like to nominate Rita Spinelli. Wayne?
Second that nomination. Nathan?
I would like to nominate Dave Bradley.
I'll second it.
I don't know if Rita's qualified to be treasurer. Can we please confirm that she has that ability before she can accept this nomination?
What would you like me to say, Mr. Bradley? I have an accounting degree. I've worked in accounts payable, payroll, payment of bills, all sorts of things for about 30 years. I have a real estate license. I have an extremely high IQ, and everyone who knows me knows I'm honest, except for you. And I don't really consider that to be any kind of a problem. So what else would you like to know about me? I pay my taxes, all of them, all the time, on time. I have a good credit rating. I don't owe people money. What else do you want to know?
I think it would be fair to know whether or not you understand the responsibilities of treasurer and what this office entails under the Pennsylvania School Code. Do you know your responsibilities?
I know more about what that entails than you do, Mr. Bradley.
I feel you're a liar. Prove it.
Bradley, we do not appreciate the derogatory terms that you use towards other board members. Thank you.
It's not derogatory. Truth. Known to be a liar. In
your
contradiction
humble-
to the Auditor
maybe
General's
not-
report.
no, not in your humble
She's
opinion,
been on.
in your
Wait,
voice.
she's been in board meetings where she thinks that the administration and the budget creates itself. I mean, come on, that's a Rita-ism and then some. That's out there. That is out there, guys.
Are there any other nominations for treasurer?
No, I want her to tell me what the
Are
responsibilities.
there any other nominations
I
for
want her
treasurer?
to tell us what the responsibilities are under the law,
I would
sir.
like to entertain a motion to close nominations for treasurer.
Stop providing cover. She
Motion
asked the
and a
question.
second,
I
please,
asked the
to close
question. She should
nomination.
answer it. Are you just going to do it? You're going to do what you did to Steve and not make him answer? The people want to hear what she thinks she has to do as a
Second by
treasurer.
Larry.
Is she going to file a report? Is she going to create a report to give it to the board? Is she going to block members of the board from getting bank statements?
Mr. Stern.
Like she's voted in the past. What is she going to do as treasurer? I don't think it's fair
I would like
for her to try to
to
accept the position when she has
public comment
proven that she does not
on
have the
both
skill.
candidates for treasurer.
I don't think she has the skill, and she's
I
proven
would like
it.
to entertain public comment on both candidates for treasurer. I do know that we have heard Mr. Bradley's comments, and I would like to entertain public comment on the two nominations for treasurer, whether it's David Bradley or Rita Spinelli.
But Rita also was supposed to answer the question. She should answer it.
Mr. Bradley, please.
Ms. Bose?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like to see a treasurer, no matter who is voted in, although I have a feeling I know who will be. I want to know that that treasurer is going to reconcile those accounts the same way you would your own checking account every month prior to the report being made. That's all I'd like to say. I want to see them reconciled, and I want to see proof of reconciliation because I think that's needed.
How about giving a rubber stamp to the administration? Should you be able to give your signature on a rubber stamp and authority to allow the administration that you oversee to use your name on checks you didn't see? Should
Any
you
other
allow
public
that?
comment, please?
Should you allow that, Barb? What do you think? I'm asking for input from
No,
Barb.
there is none, Mr. Stern.
I am seeking input from Barb. Please allow her to have the floor.
Mr. Stern, there is
and see what she
none.
thinks.
Thank you.
I'm seeking input from the community of whether or not they should
Mr. Stern,
have a
so we have
treasurer
motion in a second, I
that
believe.
provides the authority of the administration to have their signature to sign on checks that they never see. I want to know whether or not this board is going to allow that to occur again. We
Just
let
for
Nathan do it.
clarification, I think, Mr. Stern, the motion, if we could read it before the roll call vote, please.
No, we were entertaining comment on both candidates for treasurer, Mr. Bradley, Mr. Cleaver. So
Okay,
it's
thank
Mr. Bradley and Mrs. Spinelli. So since we've had no further comments,
But we're still waiting for
we'll
Rita to answer.
entertain
But we're- as
we'll
a
have
board,
two motions. We
as
will
a
have two
board, before
motions.
they vote,
We
they
will
should hear
have
this
two
information.
motions.
You should hear this information, sir. You should hear whether or not they're going to allow this to happen. As a board,
Stern,
before you just
could we
choose
please
who's
move
going to be the
forward?
officer, you
This
have to
is
decide.
Very difficult with Mr. Bradley.
I know, but it's also very difficult to just rubber stamp and pull through without understanding that you have a
Mrs.
job to.
Virginio,
You should hear this.
Need a
before you
motion
do
and
it.
a second
It would
to
be an
approve
uninformed
David
decision.
Bradley as treasurer.
Uninformed decision, guys. If you don't know
Motion
whether or
and a
not
second
Rita's
to
going to give a
approve
rubber
David
stamp.
Bradley as treasurer. Motion
Well,
and a second,
If
please.
you're gonna not know whether she's going to have a rubber stamp, you don't know, guys.
So
This would be
moved.
premature. This is a premature motion. You should listen to the information prior to making a decision.
Is there a
That's how it
second?
works.
There was a second. If
Maybe
not,
if
there's a
Mr.
second.
Bradley would stifle himself, we could hear somebody. I only heard a motion by Mrs. Beers.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mahalik. Since we have already had public comment on the two candidates, is there any comment from the board on Mr. Bradley as treasurer?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. Unlike the past decade of treasurers that this district has had, if elected treasurer, I will ensure that not only do we comply with the Pennsylvania School Code and the responsibilities of treasurer, but I also make sure that this district is not provided with authorization to use my signature on any check that I have not seen. And I think that standard check and balance should be the minimum requirement. I think the bank statements should be provided to every board member as required by law and to every community member as required by law and should be reconciled at the end of every month as required by law. I think every tax dollar collected and every tax dollar dispersed should be accounted for and presented to the public that we serve as elected officials with the authority to ensure that our subordinate administration complies with the law. And it's our responsibility to adjudicate these matters local to our district. We are a local government. Thank you.
Any other comments on Mr. Bradley?
I would also like Ms. Spinelli to recognize that she will not do those things. So therefore, even though she has a degree and whatever she says she's going to do, that she should pull her.
Roll call vote,
She
Mrs.
should
Virginio,
pull it.
please.
She should pull it.
Mr. Stephen Holland.
Run this by me again as to who is Who
Okay,
I'm voting
Mr.
for or not
This,
voting for.
this vote is for Mr. Bradley as treasurer.
Absolutely not.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
No.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
No.
Miss Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts, absent. Mr. David Bradley,
Yes, the only one that'll do the job.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
No.
Mr. Larry Stern.
No.
4 no, sorry, 4 yes, 5 no, motion failed.
Need a motion and a second to approve Rita Spinelli as treasurer.
So moved, Wayne.
Second it, Steve.
I have a motion by Mr. Wentz, a second by Mr. Holland to elect Mrs. Spinelli as treasurer. Comments from the board, please?
I don't believe she answered the question, and I don't think she understands the responsibility. And I really feel from her past actions on this board by these members and the lack of attention to the Auditor General's report that shows the problems that are occurring with this within this board, that she will have the ability, skill, or even moral character to do the job that she's responsible and trying to accept the responsibility to do. And whereas I know the cabal set this all up, and I know that they did this on purpose, and I know they're recognizing that come this court case, if any of you guys get removed for neglect of office, that you're setting yourselves up so you can protect yourselves in this Auditor General report that shows $3 million being spent without board approval and proper oversight, that shows millions of dollars being moved to the teacher's pension fund and then being pulled to buy an off-budget, not in compliance stadium by the school district. And then as recently as this last year and the year before, actions of this board that appear to be neglecting Pennsylvania school code. And by people like Nathan, it feels that some of these things are obsolete. Rita is one of the peas in this pod. It's bad, guys. You know it's bad. I know it's bad. Everyone in this room knows it's bad. And I can jump up and down and be theatrical. But when you really look in the mirror and say, $100 million in debt, injured students, cabal, rubber stamp, no oversight, no treasury report, no payroll review, rubber stamp on checks, Larry's signature on a check, Nathan's signature on a check, identical rubber stamp signatures, given authority to the administration that you're there to oversee, and yet you guys didn't even see those checks that you allowed your signature to be applied to. That's unethical. It's immoral. And this people are hurting, and you wouldn't even give them a break on their taxes. Evil, guys. Just pure, unadulterated evil.
Is there any other comments from any board member? Roll call vote on the motion to elect Rita Spinelli as treasurer.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
No.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Miss Joy Beers,
No, she's not capable.
Mr. Richard Belts, absent. Mr. David Bradley,
No, we got to end the evil, guys. We got to end it. The community took enough.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
5 yes, 3 no, 1 absent, motion carries.
On to item 12, courtesy of the floor.
Hold on,
public
no,
comment.
wait, back up. One more new motion, sir. Sorry, one more new motion. I move that this board have a special meeting to review the Auditor General's report that shows all of these atrocities that occurred within this district and has been pushed over and ignored, and no changes has taken place at all with this organizational meeting to only push and kick this can down the road, a can that David Krause, when he was president, his wife worked in this district. You had Gloria Bowman, an ex-employee. You had Rocky Arner, his wife worked in this district as a president. You got Larry Stern, his wife as a president. You have a cabal that you have not removed a single or made a single change. And this district is on the edge of being taken over by the state, at which point the taxes go through the roof, assessments, you have penalties for not filing paperwork on a proper time, right? This district is not overseeing the administration. I think we should have a special meeting just to review the Auditor General's report. Can I please get a second on that motion?
Mr. Bradley, this meeting was
I'll
advertised
second
as a reorganization
Thank you,
meeting
Gail.
with
Yep.
the.
And the organization did not take place. The
two items
reorganization it did not reorganize. You shuffled a couple people around, but the same five still hold the same positions.
You want to bring up a motion?
And that's
you
evil,
want
sir.
that
I
to
made a
occur,
motion. It's a
please bring it up
second.
at the next regular
Motion,
scheduled
nope,
meeting
motion
on
and a second to
January
hold an
25th.
Auditor General's meeting, sir. Be
Oh,
held
Mr.
accountable.
Bradley, we're
Be
going to
held
bring it
accountable.
up at January 25th.
No, sir. No, sir. We have a
Yes.
motion and a second.
No,
Public comment,
I am
please.
not recognizing
Motion
the
and a
motion as
second.
this was
There
advertised
is
as a
no-
reorganization
You had
meeting
extra
only.
motions. You have new business. It's on the agenda. I'm
No,
making a
no,
new business
no,
item.
Mr. Bradley, please.
Motion and a second, sir. Motion and a
Bradley,
second.
please. No, I'm not recognizing the
You
motion.
have a motion and a second. It's not your right to
I
not
can
recognize it.
opt to not.
No, you don't have that
actively
right. Where,
recognize
under
the
what legal
motion.
authority do you have the right to not have a motion and a second at public comment? at a
Mr.
public
Bradley,
meeting? Under what legal authority? I want to know the case
Mr.
number.
Bradley, I
and the
believe
case.
you are electing to violate the sunshine law at this point.
Absolutely not, sir. We're adding.
yes, you are.
How are you violating such? You just added
Thank
extra
you.
motions to the meeting before. You're telling me they were violations? You're telling me about
Those
adding people's
motions were
names on the motion?
advertised.
Those motions were advertised as listed.
And after the reorganization took place, and you have new business on the agenda,
Again,
any
Mr.
board
Bradley,
member at any time
Mr.
can bring any motion to the
Mr.
table.
Bradley is
I have a
recommending
right.
that
Do
we
not violate
violate
my
the
right.
sunshine.
Do not
No, you
violate. No,
don't,
you do
sir.
not have a right to violate my rights.
No, you don't,
I have
sir.
a right. Hold on. I have a right to bring any motion at any time to this board. And after this board
Advertised as
failed,
reorganization and
after
those
this
items
board
only,
failed,
sir.
neglected its duty to
Again,
properly organize, we
Mr.
want to see
Stern,
Auditor General.
adjournment.
meeting. Why would you
Public
block this?
comment?
Any public comment, please?
Comment? Yes.
First and a second. Call the vote. After the public
Public
comment.
comment,
Ms.
Cleaver?
Rose?
Can you hear me?
Rose? Yes.
All right, I wanted to, I don't know if Ms. White is still on the meeting, but I did want to answer her question in a little more detail when she asked why the board elects the president.
Yes, she's still on this.
Okay, I just wanted to explain to her
That's not what your job is.
that, but I would prefer to do it. Be quiet, Dave. It's a representative government, Ms. White. When you
That
go
wasn't me, by the way, Bob.
Hey,
That was somebody
oh,
else.
I'm sorry.
That wasn't me, but thank
Who
you.
was it?
I don't know, but I firmly would like you to explain it to her. I think it's awesome that the
Okay,
public has an opportunity to comment.
Okay, be quiet. We elect a representative government here. So when you vote for someone to be on the board, you are electing them to be your representative and vote in your name. And that's why the board elects the president, the vice president, the treasurer, etc., and why the people don't. It's because it's a representative government. It's not by the only say that you have is when you go to the polls and elect someone to represent you. That's where the people have the power. I know there was something else I wanted to comment on. But I've lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
The motion and the second is whether or not we should have a meeting for the Auditor General's
Mr.
report
Bradley,
review.
that is
That's the
not
motion and the second,
permitted
Barb.
to
That's what you have a
happen,
right
and
to
it's
speak
not
over.
recognized.
It is
I
recognized. Gail seconded
Or any
it.
other public comment, Mr. Cleaver?
Mr. Shaner?
Yes, thank you. I have a comment and then I just have a few questions. I think the board members could use in a few lessons in understanding the benefits of diversity of thought. All we did was shuffle people around here tonight and it was quite embarrassing. So that's my comment on that. My question, how many people are currently on the meeting?
35, I believe.
35, okay.
Now 35 public and there's 11 with the board member, with the group of.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Are we currently allowing sports with spectators indoors?
At this point, currently, spectators are permitted at a limited basis based off of the reduced capacity from the governor that we have.
What is the number we are limited to for indoor sports?
I believe it's 25%, and please don't hold me to it, but I believe it's 70 for the high school gym and 120 for the elementary gym, and I'm not aware of the middle school. But please don't hold me to that. I just know it's 25%.
Okay, so if it's 120, what's the max on Zoom? 100, is that correct?
Actually, we're able to get more than that in Zoom.
Oh, excellent, excellent. That's great. So I guess my follow-up question is, when are we going to begin with meetings resuming either in person in the elementary gym or having cameras turned on for the meetings? I think there's a lot of transparency that needs to be shown by this board that is not currently being shown. And I feel it's inappropriate. And I feel if we can send our children to school and allow indoor sports with spectators, we should be able to have in-person board meetings or have the cameras turned on.
Thank you, sir.
That was a question. When are we going to resume in-person meetings, please? And who makes that determination? Who decides how the board meeting is held? Is it the board or is it the superintendent?
The majority of the board could, make that choice of how a board meeting can be held. But if we do move indoors, however, and more than those amount of individuals would want to attend the meeting, we would have to cut it off, and that may be a violation. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think it would be a violation. I mean, we cut people off on Zoom meetings for quite some time before we had more capacity, so I'm not sure that it would be.
Right. Well, I think we went over up to 100 one time, and then the last meeting, I know we were over 100 that we had for attendees, and we were able to handle that.
Okay, well, I would hope that one of the distinguished board members would make a motion to either resume these meetings in public or to have the cameras turned on, as there's no reason that we should not be able to see the board members. Thank you.
Again.
Any other public comment, Mr. Cleaver?
Excuse me,
There's
again.
none at this
Mr.
time.
Cleaver, hold on a second.
Mr. Bradley,
Again,
it is
Mr.
public
Cleaver,
comment, not
I
your
know,
comment.
I
Thank you.
understand. I just helping out the
Not at this
public
time.
comment
No,
that made.
you don't have to help out anyone,
I
sir.
do, sir, because he made a motion. I'm going to honor
Salerno?
that. I'm going to suggest
Mr.
that
Salerno?
we have, hold on, I'm going to suggest that we have.
Mr. Bradley, we are in public comment. Ms. Salerno?
Hi, I would like to suggest that if you do go back to the public in-person meetings, if you can also do it Zoom with the public, because I, for one, limit where I go and who I'm around. So if it's just in public, in person, and not via Zoom, I won't be able to participate for a while, and I'm sure others are in the same predicament. So if you do choose to do that, if you consider both options, please, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
And that was my motion. I move that this board.
No, we're
move
not
to
doing any
in-public-
motions,
in-person.
Mr. Bradley.
I am making a motion.
No, we're
I
not
have a
doing
right-
any motions,
I have a
Mr.
right
Bradley.
to make a
What do you
motion.
have?
Yes,
What
do.
don't
It's
you
new business.
understand?
New
That
business.
It
What
was
don't you understand?
advertised as a regular meeting. There is
I-
no new businesses being, other than it was posted on the agenda.
There
Thank
is
you.
no other courtesy of the floor for public
One
comment.
more time,
I will
sir.
entertain a motion for adjournment. Our next regularly scheduled
So
meeting is
moved, adjourn.
January 24th,
Second.
2020. Motion by Ms.
Railroad them out, guys. Come on, railroad them out. Railroad them out. Don't let them have a public meeting with a Zoom contingency. Railroad them out. Let's get it done.
Mrs. Pertinio.
Let's get it done. Railroad them out. We shuffled everybody around, and now we can silence them again for another year. Maybe we have another contract
Mrs.
for $3
Rita
million
Spinelli?
signed by my wife's boss that doesn't
This
even
is
look
for
at what's going on,
adjournment,
and the board's
yes.
not gonna do it.
Yes. Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
No, I think we should honor these two motions that are on the floor and were seconded.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
No.
Mr. Richard Belts, absent, Mr. Larry Stern,
Yes.
6 yes, 2 no, motion carries.
Time is 8:55 PM. Thank you all for your attendance, and I apologize for the length of the meeting.